So Tommy's out at last, but obviously the journey's not over for him. The stress is not over for him. The PTSD is not over for him, and huge fight still ahead. So what happens next? Well, I imagine everybody backs off Tommy and lets him get some good R&R, rest and recuperation, as the old boys in the army would say, and spend some quality time with his family. Hopefully he's allowed to go on holiday. That would be the best bet. My advice would be America, one-way ticket. But, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. It depends how hard they go at him. But the thing is, what do we do? What do we do? We go hard, like you've seen us going. Some YouTubers, not all YouTubers, so lots of TikTokers, all going really hard. And it's quite amazing, the stuff that's getting put out. Not that I can put it out, but seems to be a lot of other people can put it out, especially on TikTok. So fair play. I'm not arguing. I'm not complaining. Some is they've got to keep a close eye on. Some is fly under the radar, which is great, because the more people get out there and do stuff like this, the harder it is for them. And, this is the weapon we've got. This is what I keep on saying to people. They tried to silence Tommy. And it worked, because look at the many children that were affected and abused, you know what I mean? And look at the cover-ups from the governments and the councils. And it's great, at last we're going to find out what councils were involved, who was in charge of the councils, who was in charge of social work, and who was in charge of the police. That's the most important thing. We know the governments. We know they're sitting ducks, right? They're sitting ducks. We can see who they are. We can see their play, and we can see who's responsible. We can see who the Justice Ministry is. We can see the damage that these kind of people are doing in our Parliament. People who have. I do believe that if you've got dual citizenship, then you don't really care that much. If you care about another country, then you shouldn't be in Parliament. That's just my opinions for entertainment and educational purposes only. This is the ramblings of some young lad who's grown up into adulthood, who went through care and spent a lot of time in prison because of mental health as well, you know what I mean, and where I was brought up in Belfast, Northern Ireland. And, at the end of the day, it's clear to me that if we have people with dual citizenship who care as much about our country, they care about some other country, and so they say they care as much about this country. So I can't say they don't care about this country, you understand? But the thing is, we've got a government that's going against our citizens. We've got a government that's using terrorist legislation against civilians, okay? Tommy Robinson, when he was leaving the country, got stopped under the Terrorism Act. Now, Tommy Robinson is not a terrorist, he's a journalist. It's as simple as that. Everybody knows that. Everybody in America knows that, everybody in Europe knows that, and everybody in Ireland knows that. Now, I understand people have their concerns about Tommy and the Israeli thing. As I say, you can support Israel and you can support Palestine. It doesn't mean you're working as an agent. Come on, guys, let's wind our necks in on that one. And as far as the criminal records go and all the rest of it, he's never been judged by his peers. He's never had his jury. So again, that's the government doing their thing to silence him. So remember, we've got evidence of a young man from Luton being brutally silenced when all he was trying to do to protect our kids. So Northern Ireland and Ireland, pay close attention. We cannot be silenced. You cannot let anybody be silenced. If any of your friends, family members, or communities, leaders are silenced, you need to get behind them. Okay? Anybody that's being dragged through the courts right now for anything to do with freedom of speech, then you need to pay close attention to them men. Because if the government are silencing them and dragging them through courts, then they're all Tommy Robinsons. You've got to understand that. Whether they're Republicans, whether they're Loyalists, whether they're Protestants, whether they're Catholics, you've got to put that in the past. You've got to leave that in the past. You can pick it back up later on once we sort this place out. But please believe me. Please believe me. With the weapons that the government are coming against us, the way they're silencing, they're not letting our YouTube videos get out. They're not letting. They're holding. They can't. In some cases, they can't take us down unless we do something really bad. But what they can do is stop us the reach getting out. So I never asked you to subscribe. So please subscribe to my channel if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, because that will help get the word out. Join other YouTubers, join other TikToks, get out onto the streets at the rallies, and and speak to your community. There's so much you can do to raise the voice of our communities because the governments are trying to silence us. Okay? Now, imagine this is England 15 years ago, right? And look at the state of England today. Imagine if they hadn't have silenced Tommy Robinson, all them children would have been saved. If the government had listened to his warnings back 15 years ago, all them children would have been saved from the most horrific types of abuse imaginable. You can't even imagine it. It's that bad, okay? Please believe me. And we've only had the transcripts from 2 of the grooming trials. Imagine how bad the others are when they're not releasing them. So please believe me. This is our Luton. This is our Tommy Robinson. This is our 15 years ago in England time. And we've got to get this right. Because if we don't, we're going to have an England like today in Northern Ireland with all sorts of bad stuff happen to our women and children. And this is an appeal to all men from both communities, both religions. Please, 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 when it comes to patriots, be a patriot, not a loyalist. Be a patriot, not a Republican. There's no religion in patriotism. I'm Freedom Dad, and God bless.